There was a PlayStation Direct the same day as the Nintendo one, and nobody cares. Even the most hardcore Nintendo detractor like watched the Direct and tried downplaying all these games and tried making a narrative about how the Switch was going to be replaced and how Princess Peach Showtime doesn't have good animations and how Mario Wonder is a major release. People were running damage control like nonstop for the Nintendo Direct. Nobody was talking about the PlayStation 1. And that kind of goes into what I've been saying all generation is that like the PS5 does feel like it's a complete and abject failure, even though nobody wants to admit it. It is laughable to me whenever someone in my comment section comes out and tries to say that like, Spider-Man Miles Morales can be game of the year. Like that hasn't come out yet, and I'm just like, first of all, like the Marvel thing is dead. Okay. Second of all, the first Spider-Man game wasn't all that spectacular to begin with. Anyone who looked at it objectively, much like with Spider-Man 2 on the GameCube, like anybody who looks at it objectively knew it was a mid-open world game that only sold itself because of the license. It is the Marvel equivalent of Hogwarts Legacy. It isn't that big of a deal. In spite of how much it sold, how popular it was with a certain demographic, it isn't a particularly interesting, innovative, or well made video game. It just has Spider Man in it. That is the only reason anybody knows these games exist at all. Like, if you just transplant Spider Man with, like, a C list superhero, like Green Lantern, right? Like if you put Green Arrow in there, like just have Green Arrow running around New York City, like shooting people with like the boxing glove arrow, right? Like it's gonna like drop off in popularity, right? Like nobody wants that. Like no, they couldn't even get like the Gotham Knights game to take off because you don't play as Batman in that, right? Like who wants to play a Batman game where you don't get to play as Batman? Like it doesn't make any sense, right? Like the game only sells because of the license. People don't care about the plot. They don't care about the combat, they don't care about the gameplay, they don't care about like anything else. They just want to see Spider-Man go around, well, Peter Parker uh, they just want to see Peter Parker in a Spider-Man costume beating up like street level thugs because the Democrats won't do anything about the crime in New York, right? That's all they want, right? That's all they want, and there are just so many better alternatives. Like I would honestly say that like Infamous, like 10 years ago, did the concept better with an original hero. In fact, like I would say that's a big reason why Infamous shines is because like it actually has an original protagonist that actually has mechanics and powers that like complement the gameplay and aren't like based on like some pre-existing comic book like logic nonsense, right? Like Infamous was a better Spider-Man game, right? Nobody wants to admit it because like Spider-Man is like basically the only thing that PlayStation has this year. So they have to overhype it. They have to like, oh man, remember when Venom was big in the 90s? Like remember that? Like they have to keep doing this thing. They have to keep hyping these games up because they don't want to admit the reality that God of War cannot compete with Bayonetta. That that Horizon cannot compete with Zelda. That Spider-Man cannot compete with the average minor Nintendo game, right? Like it's just done, okay? There is no salvaging the PlayStation brand. And right now, the community is in like very deep denial about it. Like nobody wants to admit that like the PlayStation State of Play doesn't even get like a million views on YouTube. Like nobody wants to admit it. Like nobody wants to admit that like nobody knows what's coming out, that nobody cares, that the only reason people even buy PlayStations anymore is for the yearly Call of Duty release, sports games, or Take Two games, right? Like Red Dead Redemption 2, the new Grand Theft Auto. Like that is the only thing people are interested in. Like when you compare it to like what Nintendo fans are going through, where we're like showered with games from like all sorts of genres, all sorts of ideas, targeted at all sorts of different people. Like it is night and day difference, right? It is insane how much better Nintendo is stomping PlayStation right now, and it is not something that anybody wants to admit. Everybody is just like making narratives or just pretending that like it didn't happen or that like Sony's gonna make a comeback one someday. It's not gonna happen. It's over. It's done. And We are in the early stages of that, I think. The PS5 and the Series X has been like a complete disaster. I imagine that like there haven't been as many units sold as they say there is. I'm sure like software sales are in the toilet. I'm sure that like the games in general are just overwhelmingly disappointing. It does feel like we're kind of in a dark age for non-Nintendo gaming, right? It does feel like they have reached the point where they cannot milk their old IPs the way they used to. Like the fact that they had to reboot Mortal Kombat again says a lot about the current state of the industry, right? Like the fact that they have to like just keep doing the same things over and over and over and over again with no evolution, no growth, no change, like nothing. Like it is embarrassing to see what the PlayStation brand has become over the past couple of years. Like I used to watch State of Plays just to make fun of them, but I had nothing but free time this weekend. I didn't even bother watching it. I don't even know what they announced. Nobody cared. Like, nobody had any enthusiasm at all. And when you have no enthusiasm for a product, how exactly is it going to be successful? Now, we're seeing people buy PS5s. It's not like nobody is buying them, but it is purely out of brand loyalty and a sense of like this console will be like a good purchase eventually. Like I'll have this console when like GTA 6 comes out, right? That's the mindset that a lot of normies are in. But when GTA 6 is out, when it's disappointing, when it's not as good as 5, when it's woke, when it doesn't look very good, when it has like really cringy moments, when it has like all these glitches, all these problems, all these issues, the microtransactions are worse than ever when like people just decide they would rather just play 5 some more. Like that's when you're gonna know. That's when you're gonna know that the PlayStation brand is dead. Because like we're gonna have to wait another decade for GTA 7. We're gonna have to wait forever for a new game from Take Two. And what's gonna happen then? Are we gonna go through like all of the PS6 cycle like waiting for the next GTA? Like, is it possible we'll have to wait until the PS7 for GTA? Like, are we gonna have to like just I don't know, is it possible that the development cycle gets longer and we go through like the PS6 and the PS7 and have to get the PS8 like day one to get like GTA 7? Like, is it possible? Like, I don't, I think it is. Like, I think we're at that point now where like development cycles for these games are so long that like a lot of people are picking up consoles expecting to get certain games and then are burned out on them. Like, I remember a big reason why I never got the PS4 was because like I bought the PS3 expecting Kingdom Hearts 3 and The Last Guardian specifically, and never got getting either of them, right? And that is something that I think a lot of people are gonna an experience a lot of people are gonna have within the next couple of console cycles, right? Like I do think the PlayStation brand is in decline. And right now, nobody's really talking about it. Nobody wants to admit it at all. Nobody wants to admit there's a problem. PlayStation is completely irrelevant and done.